Everyone has already commented on the news that the television series on Disney Plus about Obi-Wan Kenobi was put on hold. The news broke about a week ago, I think, on one of those unreliable clickbaity rumor sites. And at first, people discarded it because of that, because the news sounded very alarmist. It's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi series canceled in big letters, and another failure for Disney. Everything that Kathleen Kennedy touches disappears into a poof of smoke, etc. And another proof that Star Wars should have never been sold to Disney, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of people that have complaints about, or perceived complaints about, how Disney is running the Star Wars franchise reposted that, even without confirming or verifying the sources. And then the next phase was that some people were like, well, hey, but this is again on that same website, and there are a couple of websites that thrive on clickbait, and they will often use one of their other websites as a source. So they'll make up a story, and then they'll post a news article about that story on one of their other websites, so that people that are not paying attention think, well, this comes from a reliable source, but it's all self-referential. And so my first reaction was also to discard it. We've seen so many of those rumors in the past, and I know from working in the media and working in the world of television that it's very normal that sometimes during a season, plans change, the people you work with change, there's a change in director, change of leadership. It doesn't really mean that things go awry. It's just part of how the industry works. And especially if changes happen for good reasons, namely to improve the final result, then why worry about it? It's just, so I'm never really interested in those alarmist stories. I'm thinking, well, this is not just a company, Disney knows, they know what they do, and they have a pretty good track record. Even with the so-called failures like Solo, they still make a ton of money with that movie as well. So I discarded it as being fake news. Well, it turns out it wasn't as fake as we all thought. There was a piece of truth in it. That's the best clickbait, of course, if there is a little bit of truth and then you just make up the rest. Well, the truth is that indeed the crew that was working on the Obi-Wan series has been sent home. And the production of the series is currently on hold. The series itself is still scheduled to start filming at the beginning of next year. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I think the filming scheduled for this year already? I don't know if that has been postponed or not. Maybe not. But anyway, but what they want to do is to spend more time on the writing of the episodes. Now, there is a little bit of unconfirmed news, and that is that the first run of the series would just be 4 episodes long, and that they had written 2 episodes and were already casting some of the other characters that would play opposite of Obi-Wan's character, Ewan McGregor. One of those rumors, you may have read it also, was that they were going to cast a young Luke Skywalker, which I have no idea if that's true, but totally makes sense and would immediately make this a must-watch for any Star Wars fan. And it kind of makes sense. I've been thinking, well, that could be controversial, because Obi-Wan Kenobi in A New Hope was kind of a strange old man that Luke had some vague idea about. But I think that if you look carefully at the dialogue in A New Hope, then Luke at one point says, I wonder if he means old Ben Kenobi. And so there is a hint, at least, a possibility, that Luke has run into Obi-Wan in his younger years, but it may have been years ago, years before the events of A New Hope. And so I think there is a possibility to have a younger Luke Skywalker be part of the plot. Of course, it probably would have been a child or a teenager because of the timeline. But I think that there are a lot of story possibilities, especially because we know that Obi-Wan was on Tatooine to observe and protect Luke Skywalker. Because Obi-Wan, of course, knew that Luke Skywalker was the son of Anakin Skywalker. So he was kind of like a protector at a distance. But then, apparently, again, according to unconfirmed news, the 2 scripts weren't actually working. And I'm wondering if they were recalibrating after the success of The Mandalorian, and of course, the lessons learned from The Mandalorian, maybe even because of what they heard from other series, like, I don't know, Star Trek Picard. They realized, well, what we have is good, but it's not good enough. We need to up it a notch. And the expectations around Star Wars are sky high. They have always been. That is, Star Wars fans are very hard to please because they love the franchise so much, and they have such high expectations. And so the reason, and we know this for sure, that there has been a delay in the production and that the current crew has been sent home is not because the series gets canceled, that was fake news, but because they want to rewrite the existing scripts and make them much better. Here's what Ewan McGregor actually said, and this is classic crisis management, of course. They saw these stories making the rounds and people started to complain and another failure for Disney. And so, very good crisis communication. What do? The star of the show, who can do nothing wrong because it's, Ewan McGregor. Hello there. Let him be the porte-parole. Let him be the messenger of the good news that, well, don't worry, fans, it's still going to happen. And so he said in an interview, the scripts are really, really good. I'm not going to do an impersonation. The scripts are really, really good. They want to make them better, and they just slid the production to shooting next year. Okay, so here we have the confirmation that shooting was actually going to take place probably in the second half of this year. They're moving it up to next year. So it's not as dramatic as it sounds. I just got here tonight, and it's like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. It's not that dramatic. I think we're airing the same day and all that stuff. So he also seems to confirm that the actual delivery of the series will still be on schedule. They're just taking some extra time to rewrite the episodes. And if we're just talking about 4 episodes, if that is true, we don't know for sure, then I think he can say that with confidence. You can totally film 4 episodes, especially if they're using the same techniques as with The Mandalorian on this virtual set. They don't have to travel the planet. They know the technology. They have experience. Then they can totally shoot those 4 episodes in a limited time span and stay on schedule. I was personally very happy with the news that they realized that we need a rewrite. I'd rather have them rewrite it now than when they're in the middle of shooting, like what happened with Solo. We all heard afterwards what happened there, and then it's not like during production, while they were filming, that's when they decided they needed another director, and the script needed to be rewritten. The same happened with Rogue One. Rogue One, at one point, was a disaster. The story didn't work, and they had to completely rewrite the plotline and the events, and that is why there are some very strange things in Rogue One. Remember that big tower with that satellite dish? When I saw that in the movie theater, I was like, that looks wonky. That looks tacked on. That doesn't look like something that Lucasfilm would come up with. It looks clunky. And then we had seen these previews of stormtroopers on a shoreline and walking through the water, and it looked awesome. And in the final movie, that was completely gone. And when I saw that satellite dish, I was like, oh, this is probably something they changed. They needed to have something on top of that tower so that the final sequence could take place while they were climbing that archival tower, trying to retrieve the disk with the data. And I think that's exactly what happened. That happened in the middle of production, or towards the end of production. It cost them a lot of money and it caused a lot of stress. But the end result, nevertheless, even though I still don't like that tower and the looks of that satellite dish, but it still works. If you didn't know that so much had been changed in Rogue One, then you wouldn't have noticed. And so rewrites, changes of leadership, a change of director doesn't mean that the end result is going to go down the drain. On the contrary, it may actually lead to a much better product. So I would say don't worry too much. Fear leads to the dark side. Stay calm. All is going to be well.